Hi, I'm Ben, and I've got the challenge of bringing Brit Kids digital design to the comfort of your own home during lockdown. I know that few of you have access to the expensive software and computers that we have at school, but in my mini lessons, I will show you how you can stay creative with software that's totally free and, where possible, fully online so that you can access it from any device. I will show you how to tell convincing lies through photo manipulation, turn hand drawings into games, paint with robots, and help you plan a computer of your own. In this video, I will show you a free, fully online version of Photoshop called Pixlr and introduce you to the interface. So first, I'm going to show you how to get Pixlr. Go to Google Chrome and type in Pixlr, P-I-X-L-R. Click on the top link that isn't an advert, and we're going to choose Advanced Pixlr. This is the most similar version to the one that you've been using in school and will therefore be easier for you to use. And that's it. That's how to get Pixlr. Even on a mobile device like an iPad, or if you really want to try your luck, you can do it on a phone. You're going to be panning around your phone a lot, but you can open this on any device that can access the internet. Even if it's really old and it's beige or something, this will work on it. So this is an image editing program. We're going to need to get an image. There is an image in the description below for this video, or if you're accessing it through Google Drive, there'll be an image next to it that looks like this. So I'm going to need you to download that onto your device. So once you've downloaded your image, I'm going to need you to open it up. Now, the easiest way to get an image into Pixlr is to go to your downloads folder and simply drag the image in from there. If, however, you're using a mobile device, it won't be as easy. You're going to need to click on Open Image, and then you can search your device for whatever image you want to edit. Wherever your phones download their stuff to, it's different for each one. Go there, find the image that you've downloaded, and hit Open. And your image will be open in an interface that looks quite similar to Photoshop. The controls are also fairly similar to Photoshop with some differences. I'm going to show you how to zoom in and out. So on your keyboard, I'm going to need you to hold Alt, and then you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse. If you're on an iPad, you can pinch and zoom. And once you've zoomed in, you're going to need to pan around. If you're on an iPad, use 2 fingers to pan around, or on a computer, you can do spacebar. Now, if you use any shortcuts on your computer and a weird menu appears like this, simply click anywhere in the image editing area and then hold spacebar, and you can pan around like this. So I'm holding the spacebar and clicking and dragging my mouse. If I forget to say a keyboard shortcut, I've got this little thing up there that's showing what buttons I'm pressing and stuff, which should help you out. Great. So this is just going to be an experiment. I'm going to go through some of the main buttons over here that you're going to need to know. I just want one line of buttons on the left here, so I'm just going to move my window up like this to give it more room to breathe. Great. So first of all, you've got your arrange tool. This is great for clicking on objects and moving them around. We don't have any yet, but let's make one. So the next one down is called the selection tool, the marquee select. Each tool, by the way, has a little picture that pops out as well to show you what on earth it means, which is great. So with this tool, you can select a part of your image and then physically move it around. So to move it around, you use the arrange button just above, and then it will actually sort of tear it out of the image and move it like this, which in this case is quite a destructive thing to do. So we need to undo. To undo, you can do edit, undo, or on the computer, you can do Control Z or Command Z if you're on a Mac. So Control Z, it's probably the most important shortcut to remember. If you remember one shortcut from this video, it's Control Z to undo when you make a mistake, and you will. Next, you've got the lasso tool. So you can use this to draw around objects that you want to, that are on a square, for example. So if I zoom into this rowboat down here, I'm holding, that's Alt and scroll, and then spacebar and drag to pan around. I'm going to zoom in quite far for this. Whoops. And I'm going to go to the lasso selection tool. I'm then going to very carefully go around the edge of this boat here. So make sure you've zoomed in far. If in doubt, leave your selection line on the outside of the boat rather than the inside of the boat. So if you make a mistake, it's easier to rub out and just get a bit of the shadow in there as well, which we can rub out later, and get that like that. Once you join it back up to the top, you can then do stuff with it. I'm now going to show you how to copy and paste. So beforehand, we moved a part of the image, but it didn't make a new layer. It was all stuck in the same layer, which was really difficult to work with. So if we copy and paste, we can get this boat onto a separate layer. So we can do edit, copy, or Control C, and then edit, paste, or Control V for violin. You then see the boat has duplicated itself like this. We want to move it around. So let's go get the arrange tool and move that boat up onto the beach. I'm going to hold the space bar and pan, and let's just say I want it up here. Now if I zoom out, I want the boat to be at a slightly different angle because nothing in real life is at perfect angles to each other. So I'm just going to kind of move it roughly about there. Don't go too far or the shadow will be on the wrong side of the boat and people will think it's fake. So I'm just going to kind of do that like that. Next, you've got the wand selection tool. This is good if you want to select an object that's all one color. So if you click on the magic wand tool, at the top here, you've got something called tolerance. This is how much of the same color it will select. I usually have my tolerance set to around 90-ish, and you can do that. And then if you click on something that's a similar color, like this blue boat here, you can see it selects all of these parts of it. If you want to add more to the selection, you can use the add to selection method of the tool here, and you can add other colors. Although if you go too far and add too many different colors, it will start to select more than you want, like this. I've now accidentally selected the entire ocean, so I'm going to undo that with Control Z. Once you've got your selection, again, if you want to do copy and paste to see what's happened, Control C, Control V, and then use the move tool to move it around. It almost looks like it's sunken in the sand or something like that. I don't like it. I want to delete this. To delete it, you can go to the arrange tool, and there is a rubbish bin, which is delete, or on the keyboard, you can hit delete, and that's gone. Next, you've got the crop tool. This will make your image smaller, the entire image smaller. So if you get the crop tool, and you can see on the edge of your document here, you've got these little lines. You can crop your image in ever so slightly. So if you want to make your image slightly more square, when you're done, you can hit apply at the top or enter on the keyboard, and that will apply that. I'm going to now zoom back in with Alt and scroll. I'll come to this tool later on. Next, you've got the liquify tool, which is, I suppose, good for like memes. You can make people's eyes really big. If you go to your background layer over here to make sure you're still using that, you can kind of go over your image and scribble over it. And now this boat's underwater, which is kind of cool. I don't like that. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo. Next, this is quite awesome. This is the heal tool. So if you've got a photo of yourself, but you've got a nasty spot on your cheek, you can click on this and the spot will disappear forever. It's like the spot healing brush in Photoshop. It's not quite as powerful because this software is free and online. But if I zoom in here, there's like someone's left their towel on the beach and there's some rubbish next to it. And that offends me, so I'm going to remove it. So if you get your heal tool and move your brush, you can see a circle for your brush. You can change the size of your brush by dragging the size of your brush up like this, or if you're badass, on the keyboard, you can use the full stop or comma buttons to increase or decrease the size of your brush, which is what I'll be doing. So if you increase the size of your brush so it's ever so slightly bigger than this rubbish, and then click on it, it should kind of disappear. And if it doesn't disappear the first time, you might need to click on it again a couple of times for it to disappear fully. If your brush is smaller than what you're trying to remove, it's going to have a hard time. So bear that in mind. The brush size is important. If your brush is too big, it will look really weird. This only really works on objects that are sort of stationary, isolated on their own like this. If I was to try it on these people, it wouldn't work quite as well, because it will try and copy the boat over or something like that. Next, you've got the clone tool. And what you can do with this is, again, it's another way of making a copy of an object. So if I click on the stamp tool, at the top here, there's something called source. Click on the source and then click on a part of your boat that is on the shoreline. So I'm going to click on the side of the boat here that's exactly on the shoreline like this, because it's going to help me guide it later on when I paint it back in. So click very carefully here, and then if you move your brush away from that area, you can see it's now changed to paint mode. I'm again going to position my cursor exactly on the shoreline like this, and then we're going to click and drag and hold and paint. Now look, on the right hand side you can see where it's copying from, and on the left you can see where it's painting to. It's really awesome. I'm going to be really careful and try to not get these people in, because it'll look really weird if there's two of them. Excellent. Now I'm going to make my brush smaller with the comma tool, and I'm going to click on source again. I'm going to sample a area of water that's next to this blobby bit here, and I'm going to paint it over it like this. I'm kind of using the image to paint over itself to clean it up like that. That tool might need some practice, it's a bit tricky. Next, you've got the blur tool. If I click on this, use the full stop on my keyboard to make the brush bigger, or do that if you're old school. You can use this to maybe blur things in the background more, or to make this look like it's an old-fashioned photo, I might blur the corners slightly like this, and maybe it helps bring an area of focus to the middle like that. Next, we've got the dodge and burn tool. So this can make an image darker. If you wanted to sort of make a piece of paper look like a treasure map, you can use this tool and make sure you're setting it to darken mode. And I'm going to use mid-tones, which are just sort of the most common colors in your image. I'm going to use my full stop button to make my brush bigger, and you can sort of paint over your image. The strength of this brush is set to 30, so I can just sort of paint. Maybe I want some sort of the beach to be darker over here or something. And if you keep on painting over the same area, it will get darker and darker until it looks stupid. So you can do that. So this sort of makes these sand dunes look a little bit more sort of raised as I've sort of painted this darker shadowed area onto it like that. Next, we've got the sponge tool. You can use this to make parts of your image less intense. So if you go to the sponge tool at the top, choose saturation and choose decrease, you can paint over, let's say, this blue boat here. Set your strength to about 30 and set your strength to about 50, and as you paint over an object, you can see it gets slightly faded like that. So this boat isn't quite as intense anymore, and I kind of prefer that. So it just makes things a bit, if you do it too much, you can make it completely black and white as well. Next, you've got the pen tool. Now, when you get to these tools, you're going to need to set up a new layer. You do not really ever want to paint directly onto your background layer. So we're now going to create a brand new layer so that we don't destroy anything. To make a new layer, you click on this plus button here and choose empty. And if you want to rename it, you can click on these three dots here and call it, I'm going to call mine pen stuff, and close that little cross there. And then you can sort of do a sketchy pen if you like. So that's come out really weird. There you go. And you've then got the brush tool. The brush is like the pen tool, but it has a softer edge on it. So if I increase the size of my brush, you can see the edge of this is a bit softer. And so you can do digital painting if you have a tablet. And with the brush tool, to change the color of your brush, you can click down here where it's got the black circle, and you can change that into whatever color you want. And you can paint like that as well. And you can change the other settings up here for the size. You can even click on the circle here and change the tip shape. So if you want to paint a whole bunch of stars around, you absolutely can do that too. Next, we've got the eraser tool, and you can use this to rub out the stuff that you've got. What I'm doing now will only work if you have painted onto its own layer. So I'm going to show you what happens if you don't do that. If you paint with a brush onto the background layer like this, then get the eraser tool, try rubbing that out, you're actually rubbing out the entire image. There's nothing behind it anymore. This is why we have to use layers. Now, if you've got a layer that you don't want to see anymore, you could delete it, but you might want to use it later on. So you can click on where it says your pen stuff layer up here, click on the three dots and click on where it says hidden. The layer's still there, but you can't see it anymore. That's great. Then click on your background layer, and the next tool is quite fun. You can click on the replace color tool. So click on that, and we're going to change the color of this sort of surfboard thing here and change it to a different color. So click on your color here and choose a color that isn't yellow or red. I'm going to try and paint mine this color green here. Hit OK, and I'm going to paint over this boat, and it keeps all the details in. It just sort of replaces the color of it, which is quite cool. You might want to zoom in and make your brush smaller. You can even adjust the opacity down a bit like this so that it's a bit less intense. And if parts of it aren't getting selected, you can increase the tolerance up here as well. Next, you've got the shapes and the paint bucket. So I'm going to once again make a brand new empty layer. So I'm going to show you this tool first. I'm going to click on the shape tool and you can choose your shapes from the top. I'm going to choose a rectangle. Now look at your colors at the bottom. I've got this sort of green and yellow here. When I drag up my square, you can see that it's got a green border and a yellow fill. So that shows you how you can use these colors to help with that. Let's say you want to change part of this shape. You can go to your paint bucket tool. And let's say I want to change the contents of this so that it is red. I can hit OK and then click inside there. And you can see I've made a mistake. I've chosen the wrong color. So what I can do down here is click the switch colors button and swap them around. And now I can choose whatever color I want in there. To move these shapes, don't forget you can use the arrange tool to move this or resize it as well. Next, we've got the gradient tool, which is just above the shapes tool. Now, if you use the gradient tool on its own, you just click and drag on your image and you can see at the top of your screen here what colors it's going to make, and it gives you this sort of horrible sort of color like that. If you want the gradient to only happen in a small area, you need to use your marquee select, and you can select a part of your image and then have your gradient going through only that area like that. Sorry, these colors are really ugly. Let's delete them. So to delete a layer, you can right click or click on these three dots here and hit the delete layer button like that. Finally, we've got the text tool. Click on that and then click in your image and it will ask you, do you want to make a new text layer? Click add and you can type in whatever you like in here, and obviously your text color can be changed by clicking at the top. Once you typed in your text, you will need to reselect it like I'm doing here to change the color to whatever you want, and you can also change the font as well. I'll show you in another tutorial how to use fonts from your own computer that you might have downloaded or something. That is an overview of Pixlr. In future tutorials, I'll show you how to use the adjustments menu and many other things to create some amazing artwork. Now, if you're one of my older students or fancy a challenge, then I'm going to need you to stick around after you save your work. If you think you're done now, then I'd like you to save this image. To save your work, you do File, Save, or Control S. And then you've got a few options that you can save it as. If I were you, save this one as a JPEG. That means you can open it up on any device. Same with a PNG. If you want to save this with all of the layers intact so that you can open it back up in Pixlr, then you need to save it as a PXD. So only do that if you want to edit the image in the future. So I'm going to save this as a JPEG and then you can hit download. You'll see it go to the bottom of your Chrome window and now it's in your downloads folder. All done. Now this bit's for my older students or those that fancy a challenge. I'm going to pretend that you've been commissioned to clean up this image for a holiday brochure or something, and you're going to need to make sure everything's cleaned up. And I also want you to make the ocean look blue instead of brown. I certainly wouldn't want to go swimming in that ocean, and so I'm going to help you try and make it look something a little bit more like this. So to do this, I'm going to turn off my text layer because that's in the way, and I click on the three dots here and click on hidden, and I'm going to go to the background layer and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to do right click on the background layer or hit the three dots and then hit the button here that says duplicate layer. Now there's two of the exact same layer. I want to isolate just the ocean area down here. To do that, I'm going to temporarily turn off the bottom layer. So I'm going to click on this little tick box for visible, or if you really want, you can click on the three dots and do hidden. But I'm going to untick visible there and then go to my background copy. So this one's hidden, this one's showing now. And we're now going to go to this pair of scissors icon that I skipped earlier. So click on that and go to lasso mask and make sure that the mode is set to remove from mask, and you're going to draw a rough area of your image that you want to cut out. So I want to cut out all of the sand from this layer so that it's just got the ocean. So get your scissors and kind of just draw a big line around the outside of your document like this, And then along the shoreline here, try and stay on dry land. Don't let this red dotted line go into the water. It will mess everything up. So do that, and then you can join it back up. And when you're roughly near where you started, let go of your mouse and you'll see it's cut out all of the dry land up there. Obviously this boat's on a separate layer, which you can see here, so that's absolutely fine. Now you can turn on your hidden layer at the bottom. So the one that was unticked, you can re-tick that. So make sure you're on your background copy layer. You must be on the layer above the background for this to work. And then go to your color replace tool that we covered earlier. So we can change the color of the water, and go to the top color up here and change it to a greeny blue color, kind of like this. Hit OK. Increase the size of your brush. You can use the full stop button on the keyboard to make your brush go to about 370 pixels. And without letting go of your mouse, paint over the water like this. And you are going to paint over the boats, and they're all going to go blue as well. Don't worry, we're going to take them back out in a minute. So if you paint too far out into the beach, don't worry about that either. We can fix that soon. You will notice that when you let go, it will not paint above the edge of the boundary of this layer here because you've erased it. Remember, this layer here is now only the water, and you can see the edge of it there. So we're going to clean some of this up now. So to clean this up, go back to your scissors up here, the cutout mask, and this time go to the paint brush up here, and we're going to use remove from mask. With this tool, you cannot use the full stop or comma buttons to change the size of your brush. I think they haven't programmed that properly yet. So you need to increase the size manually up here to about 80 pixels. And then you can kind of paint over the areas that offend you, like this area of beach here. I'm going to zoom in now with Alt and scroll and take a closer look at these boats and stuff. For this, I'm going to make my brush smaller to about 30 or 25. And this will take you a good 5 minutes to very carefully go over these boats. And if you make any mistakes, you can do Control Z or Command Z to undo. If, like me, you make a mistake like this and go out of the boat and into the water, you don't always have to undo. You can go and change the mode back to Add to Mask, and it paints back in the layer that you've removed. That's why these scissors are so much better than using an eraser, because the stuff that you think you've erased is actually secretly still there, and you can actually add it back in afterwards. It's a bit complicated, but after you use it, you'll get the idea. So I'm going to go back to remove from mask and paint over these. Use the spacebar to pan around your image and make sure you get everything you need. And when you get to the people here, you're going to need to make your brush a lot smaller. So use the brush size here down to probably about 5 or 10, like that. And it's not perfect, but I'd say from a distance that looks done. If you want to do anything else to the background layer, remember you have to click on the background layer, and then you can remove any other objects that you need to by clicking multiple times like that. And then you can save this. So remember, it's File, Save, and you can save that, download it as a JPEG, and you're done.